Okay, so you want to join the militia. You picture it the way the recruiting story tells it. A rider comes through before dawn, you take the musket down off the wall, walk out to the green with men you have known your whole life, and by nightfall you have fired at the most powerful army on Earth. Then you open a state militia act. New Jersey, 1778. Every enrolled man shall constantly keep himself furnished with a good musket, well fitted with a bayonet, steel ramrod and worm, a cartridge box, 23 rounds of cartridge sized to his musket, a priming wire, brush, 12 flints, a knapsack, and a canteen. Forfeit 6 shillings for want of a musket. Forfeit 1 shilling for want of any of the other articles, every single time you are called out. Read that again. The state is not handing you a weapon. The state is fining you for not owning one. That is the part the recruiting story leaves out. Someone has to buy the musket, replace the flints, find the shoes, feed the household while you are gone, and cover the harvest that nobody brought in. We are going behind the muster roll and into the household accounts. First, the word is slightly wrong. We say soldier because that is the word that survived. There were 3 different things standing in that field. There was the Continental Army, paid by Congress, enlisted for long terms, moved anywhere in the 13 states. There were state troops, longer than militia, narrower than Continentals. And there was the militia, which was not a job at all. It was a legal obligation, attached to being a free man of a certain age. Virginia's Act of May 1777 enrolled all free male persons, hired servants, and apprentices between 16 and 50. Pennsylvania's law of March 1777 compelled every man between 18 and 53 to enroll, attend the appointed exercise days, and muster when called, or pay a fine for each and every neglect of duty. New York had been doing it since before the war, Massachusetts too. So you are not being hired, you are being conscripted. Now, let us price it. Start with the gun, because the gun is the largest single number in a poor man's life. James Whisker puts a musket at 12 Spanish milled dollars, which is 3 pounds, 15 shillings. Other estimates run from about 2 pounds for a rough local piece up to 7 for something imported and good. A rifle with all its accoutrements sat in a completely different bracket. Take the middle. 3 pounds, 15 shillings is 75 shillings. Hold that number. Now the smaller items, and there are a lot of them. Massachusetts required a pound of good powder, 20 bullets fit for your gun, 12 flints, a cartouche box, a worm, a priming wire, and a good sword or cutlass. New Jersey wanted 23 made-up cartridges ready to go. Add a hat, a shirt or two, a coat, and shoes. Shoes are the most underrated line in the entire ledger. You are infantry. Your entire economic function is walking. Militia turned out on foot, marched to a rendezvous, marched to a position, marched home, and did it again the next time the alarm went up. Leather wears out on wet roads faster than anyone budgets for, and a man with ruined shoes is a sick one. None of that is a one-time purchase either. Powder is consumed, flints chip and get thrown away, cartridges get fired or ruined by damp, the bayonet gets lost, the canteen splits. Every muster day is a fresh inspection where the same shilling fines are waiting for anything missing. So before the government owes you a single penny, you have already sunk something in the neighborhood of 4 to 6 pounds into equipment and committed to a small recurring bill forever after. Now, let us see what the government pays. In June 1775, the Continental Congress set the monthly rate for a private at 6 2/3. A sergeant got 8, a corporal or a drummer got 7 1/3, a captain got 20, a colonel got 50. Congress reckoned in Pennsylvania currency, where 1 pound equaled 2 2/3 and $1 equaled 7 shillings and 6 pence. So a private's 6 2/3 comes out to exactly 50 shillings. Compare that to civilian work. Benchmarks for unskilled labor in the colonies in this period sit around 2 shillings a day, with skilled trades higher. At 2 shillings, 2 pounds 10 shillings is 25 days of ordinary wages. You are being paid roughly 25 days of a laborer's money for a month in which you cannot go home at night, cannot choose your hours, cannot leave, and might be shot. And that musket you bought? 75 shillings. 1.5 months of your entire gross pay spent up front on a tool the state requires you to own in order to be allowed to earn that pay. Now watch the pay line over time, because this is where it gets ugly. Congress raised officer pay in November 1775, raised it again in October 1776, explicitly as a further encouragement for gentlemen of abilities, raised it again in May 1778, when a colonel went from $50 to $75, and a captain from $20 to $40. The private's rate in 1778 was $6 2/3. Congress ordered 11 emissions of paper money between 1775 and 1779, and that paper was 82% of the federal government's income, which means the government was not really taxing to pay you. It was printing to pay you, and every note it printed made the note in your hand worth less. By 1781, estimates of the exchange run from about 167.5 Continental paper dollars to $1 in hard coin, up to 225 to 1. That is the origin of the phrase, not worth a Continental. Put your wage through that. Washington wrote to John Hancock during the Siege of Boston that the paymaster has not a single dollar in hand. That sentence repeats for 7 years. Pay arrived late, arrived partial, or arrived as a promise. But the wage is not the expensive part. The expensive part is the field you are not standing in. Militia turnout was seasonal, and the season the enemy liked was the season the farm needed you. Campaigning weather is planting, haying, and harvest weather. A 2-month tour in the wrong 2 months does not cost you 2 months of wages. It costs you a portion of an entire year of household output, because grass cut late is worth less, grain left standing is lost to weather and birds, and a fence not mended in spring is a dead animal in autumn. Your household absorbs that. Your wife runs the farm, the accounts, the stock, and the children, and does your work as well as her own.
Your father or your brother covers what they can. If you are an apprentice or a hired servant, and the militia acts enrolled both, your absence is a dispute between you and a master who still expects the work. Virginia's 1777 Act excused the governor, the council, members of Congress, judges, the treasurer, the attorney general, auditors, ministers of the gospel, postmasters, jailkeepers, millers, and men employed in the iron and lead works. Some of that is genuinely about keeping essential trades running. All of it means the burden of turning out landed hardest on the ordinary farmer, with no legal escape and no cash to buy one. Because you could buy one. Under the Pennsylvania system, a man could pay the fine or hire a substitute to serve his tour for him. Alright, it sounds unsurvivable. So why did anyone show up? Because the pay line was never the whole income.
Start with bounties, which is where the real cash was. Congress, states, towns, and even private individuals paid a lump sum to get a man to enlist or to extend, and the amount depended on when, where, who was paying, and what the man brought with him. At the end of 1776, with the army disintegrating, Washington offered $10 in hard coin to any man who would stay 6 more weeks. That $10 in silver was worth more than a year and a half of nominal monthly pay in paper. Then look at what a town would pay when it got desperate. Salem, Massachusetts, June 1780. A few dollars of hard specie, several $100s of Continental paper, and half a dozen head of cattle, delivered when the man mustered out. Ignore the paper. It was already dying. 6 head of cattle is a real asset. That is breeding stock. That is the beginning of a farm for a man who owned nothing. Then there is land. The colonies were cash poor and land rich, so land warrants became the standard substitute for money. Acreage instead of coin, redeemable later. Then rations. Easy to skip, and you should not. Every day you are fed by the army is a day your household is not feeding you. For a laboring family, food is the dominant expense. Being fed by someone else for 60 days has hard cash value, even when the wage does not arrive. Then the substitute market, which is the sleeper income line of the whole war. If a wealthier neighbor would rather pay than march, and the law lets him hire you in his place, you have just discovered a private wage set by the free market instead of by Congress. It floated with how badly people wanted out and how scared everyone was that month, and in a bad panic, it could dwarf the official rate. The poorest men in the militia system frequently made more from other men's reluctance than from the state's gratitude. Then salvage and plunder, which nobody puts in a pay table, but everybody understood. Captured arms, captured horses, abandoned equipment, all of it convertible. And finally, standing. Militia service was local and visible. It was tied to who got trusted, who got elected constable or assessor, who got remembered when offices were handed out. Now, here is the mechanism, and it is the same trick the landlord runs on the tenant. Congress and the states could not afford this war. Their solution was to push the capital cost onto the individual. The state supplies the legal obligation and the paper money, and prints more paper whenever it runs short, which quietly transfers the cost back to you a third time by destroying the value of what it already promised. Here is what a reconstruction of your year looks like. And to be clear, this is a model built from the documented pay rates, the equipment lists in the Militia Acts, published price and wage benchmarks, and stated assumptions about turnout. Good year. You turn out for 2 short tours in months that miss the harvest. Nominal pay for 2 months is £5 on paper, and you receive maybe a third of it. Late. Call it £1.10 in usable value. Add a town bounty in something real, coin or livestock, say £3 equivalent. You finish maybe £5 ahead in real value, which is genuinely good. That is around 50 days of a laborer's wages, and it came with cattle or a land warrant you can build on. Ordinary year. 3 tours, one of them straddling harvest. Pay arrives in paper worth a fraction of its face. No bounty because your county was not desperate that season. Farm loss runs £3, equipment and fines take another £1.5. You come out roughly level, having done 2 months of dangerous unpaid labor for the privilege. Bad year. The war comes to your county. Musters go from occasional to constant. You turn out 4 or 5 times. Your paper pay is worthless. Foragers from both armies take your stock. The harvest is a write-off, and you replace a lost musket at 75 shillings. You are down 8 to 12 pounds. And that is a household selling livestock and going into debt to a neighbor who will remember it. And then there is the last loss, the one that arrives 30 years late. In 1783, Congress voted the Army 3 months' pay and did not have it, so Robert Morris issued $800,000 in personal notes. Men sold those notes cheap in camp to buy their way home. When pensions finally came, the 1818 Act required Continental service. Militia and state service largely did not qualify until the 1830 Act, decades later, by which time a very large number of the men who had turned out on the green were dead. So who got rich? Not the militiaman. The speculator who bought his certificate for pennies.